what I seem to do is go to more and more French boat festivals, and I have just been to two, well, properly speaking, one boat festival and one small boat rally. This particular video is not intended to be a how-to video, but simply to give you an idea and a feel for what happens if you bring your boat across to France, and to encourage you to do it. It's encourage you to do it video, not a how to do it video. The first event was La Semaine du Golfe on the Gulf de Morbihan, an immense and extremely exciting boat festival with about 1,500 boats. There is a tide mill across the river just up there, which isn't on the chart. The chart says that the river carries on. So I came round the corner and there was this tide mill and a weir and everything, and people sunbathing on the dam, and I was so astonished I hit a rock gently. The lovely thing is that you can get to somewhere like this, come all the way up a river, right to the head of navigation, drop the hook, put up your tent, and there you are. It's a freedom that people on land would consider unimaginable, really. I wonder whether people realise just what freedom there is to take a small boat anywhere. And it's extraordinary to me that this is considered a crazy thing to do, and somehow just weird. When I can come somewhere like this, would I want a bigger boat? This is the third day of the Challenge Naviguer Léger, and we're sailing through the Ile de Glénan. In this small boat rally, organised by the French magazine Le Chasse-Marée, I was one of 12 boats sailing along the French coast, sleeping aboard or camping ashore every night. We spent our final night at Port-Manac, at the mouth of the Avon River. Most of the boats pulled up on the beach above the high water mark for the night. The rest of us spent the night afloat in our boats. We set off very early the next morning at 7 a.m. and started to row up the coast. When you row, you create some wind simply by moving through the air. It's easy to imagine you could sail in that wind. Almost always it's better to keep rowing. Actually, start sailing. Oui, le méchant îlot blanc. Sometimes sailing the way we do, I hope we do, even though it is of course the most sensible way to go about sailing, it feels a little like you're sailing against the wind of everyone else's opinion. But when you do this, suddenly it's normal. It's absolutely the way things are done in your little group or in a big boat festival like La Semaine du Golfe a month ago. Whole host of little boats. And you dominate the landscape. Sails, brown and white, of all colours. We're now sailing just west of North into a deep bay in the South Breton coast, which is where we set off from. We're about 10 miles off at the moment. The Ile de Glénon, just a beam over there, which is where we were earlier on. And it's interesting to reflect while we sail along like this. The helm is lax, so I'm just having to check around the horizon every so often to make sure nothing's going to run into us, but I don't actually need to steer. The boat's well balanced enough. Occasionally you'll see me put my hand up behind the camera just to adjust the helm. I don't know what it is about being at sea that relaxes spirit. But the last time I sailed along this coast, along around most of these islands and up most of these creeks, and the way it works is that if you get your tides right, you end up getting something with the, let's say you take the flood tide up a river in the evening, and you get to, if you go up the Ode, lovely river, and you get to Quimper, city with the staggering cathedral, right by the river. You can spend the night up there, which I have done. And then the next morning, it's high water again, early morning. So if you're going to go back down the river, you have to leave immediately, never having seen the city. So what you do in these situations is you have a day sailing and then a day ashore exploring. So you can have a whole day in Quimper. You can't have half a day because then the tide would be wrong. So I spent 2 nights in Quimper and then came down again, just sailing along and doing all the intricate navigation which is often necessary if you're close inshore on this coast, because there's lots of rocks. You've got to thread your way through them, work out which is which. In the days before the amazing chart plotter. At the end of the Challenge Naviguer Léger, I set off sailing on my own and ended up on a mad reach into a bay south of Concarneau, where I entered a little river and went deep inland to drop anchor close to this little tide mill. I want to explain why you should come over here and participate in these French boat festivals. It's just like England, only warmer, with French restaurants. But also the coastline is actually, the French wouldn't admit this, but it is a lot softer. There's a lot more sheltered places which make it much friendlier to a small open boat than a lot of the English coast, where Scotland is a wee bit different, but the weather is rather different in Scotland as well. But in England, a lot of the coast is very exposed between sheltered havens. If you go outside those areas, you've got long stretches of very bleak, very exposed coast with strong tides running down. That makes it difficult to, unless you're really experienced, to do the sort of coastal cruising that I like to do. And so I really do think you should try coming to France.